Anyway, so before we get started on today's video, I just want to make a shout out to all the couples out there, to all the, lovey-dovey birds, because tomorrow is Valentine's Day. And from my heart to yours, happy Valentine's Day. Anyway, let's get started on the show. Hey, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. This is The Age, as you remember me from last time. And today, well, we're going to be talking about another event that's coming up. You remember how the Super Bowl we talked about last time? Well, forget about that. Because you know what I said? Relax, chill, spring football, whatever. You basically know what I said. So today, we're going to an event that's coming up. Can any of you guess what it is? If you guessed the NFL Combine, then you would be correct. And as you may know, the top college football players that are declaring for the draft are obviously going to this Combine. And today we are going to be evaluating some of those players and see some of their strengths, weaknesses, and, their ranking pre-Combine. So let's get started. Obviously, you cannot start talking about this year's draft class without talking about the amazingness that Fernando Mendoza has been through this year. And yeah, he is the number one quarterback in the draft. He is a tall, strong quarterback, 6'5", 230 pounds. He had great poise in the national championship game despite being bruised, Yeah, but the biggest thing is you have to build a team around him. That's the only way he can function. So if you're planning on taking him, you are most likely going to want to draft a wide receiver and offensive lineman in the back-to-back rounds following him. And just one more thing. Don't really expect him to get outside the pocket too much. He's a bit more of a system quarterback, so yay. Expect him to be a bit more of a pocket passer. The next quarterback I want to mention is personally one of my favorites, Diego Pavia, 5-year starter at Vanderbilt. And yes, he is incredibly smart winning that 5th year, having a master's degree and all. Yeah. He has amazing playmaking ability for, being a 6-foot quarterback. And he dominated SEC defenses to become the leading passer in the entire nation. Yes, topping Fernando Mendoza himself. He takes a little bit longer to trust his receivers, but once he does that, he's going to explode. My big suggestion to you is that you really don't want to start him right away. Although he is most likely going to be your quarterback in the future, he needs a veteran. But the biggest thing that makes him unique is the fact that he has a presence that you can't really find on a quarterback anymore. And that personally I can relate to. Tough, unapologetically himself, and willing to do anything, even taking a huge hit to help the team. Coaches and fans love him as well as teammates, but the media really, really, really hates him. So I hope I could shed some light, help bring him back to score. Yeah, despite the fact that you got Diego Pavia and Fernando Mendoza, the next quarterback is really only here because of underdog narrative hype. Trinidad Chambliss, as many of you may know, actually overtook an injured Austin Simmons early in the year and has exploded ever since. He really is a dual-threat quarterback. He actually dominated Division II while he could. He won a title there. And yeah, the biggest weakness I could say is that he only had 1 year's worth of experience at Ole Miss, and he's not ready for an NFL starting position anytime soon. So he's most likely to be a career backup. And yeah, despite, looking good, he really only has 1 year. He had a head coach. He had a bit of an advantage over everyone else. So take warning. You really can't start talking about running backs in the 2026 Combine without mentioning Jeremiah Love. As you may know, Jeremiah Love has been a star at Notre Dame all 3 years he's been there. He could score on any given play, and he can make multiple cuts in the same run, being like, But the biggest weakness about him is the fact that he can't really thrive without an offensive line. And if he's down, even though he's like 215 pounds, he's down once you tackle him. And the few times he's fought for extra yards, they really haven't gone so well. So, once again, take warning. The next guy I want to mention on this list is Mark Fletcher. As you may know, he actually took over for the starting running back position in Miami when Damian Martinez left for last year's draft. through his 1 year, he's been dominant, to say the very least. He's showcased physical talents and the fact that, he's a workhorse. But the biggest weakness about him, he's a bit of a history of running into teammates, which I think is personally pretty funny. But he generally works best in his zone blocking scheme to avoid bumping into any of his linemen and hitting the incorrect hole and, going for negative play. Although there is upside, you just got to contain that in the right scheme. Another running back I want to mention is personally one of my favorite running backs in the NFL draft, Jonah Coleman. He's big, he's strong, he's thick, and he's your old school workhorse power back. He can run over you, he can run through you, and he can literally surprise you with his cuts and speed. He has played under the same head coach all 4 years, Jedd Fisch. That could be an advantage or a disadvantage because Jedd Fisch didn't really, have much expertise in the running game, although he did have a bit in the passing game, so it kept defenses on their toes. However, he is not really that agile, so you're going to have to place him in most inside run schemes, like run-heavy schemes. And yeah, if you work him right, just like any of these other guys, he could very well be one of the top running backs in the NFL for years to come. All right, so wide receivers. First off, you got Jordan Tyson, a great deep route runner who's accompanied Sam Levitt through his 2 years. He cutting on a dime. He's a little more agile and strong and really needs to work on securing the ball. You see, he's actually had success leading Arizona State to a Big 12 title despite being a 2-star recruit way back in the past. The next receiver I want to mention is Elijah Surratt. If you do not know him, he was Fernando Mendoza's top wideout this year. And yeah, he's arguably one of the better wideouts of our day. He's actually an amazing route runner. He's a very powerful guy for his height, and he can make almost any catch with ease. Although I'd suggest he lose like 5 to 10 pounds if he really wants to fit in as a normal NFL wide receiver. I'm not saying normal, but you get it. The other wide receiver I want to cover in this draft is personally also one of my favorites in the draft, Denzel Boston. He's played for Washington for 3 years and has even led them to a college football playoff trip alongside Romondunse, if you remember him. He has dropped fewer than 10 passes during 3 years. He's arguably the strongest receiver, being like 6'4", 210. I think he's a reliable enough to become a wide receiver number 2, red zone threat. I think he can make any catch personally, but I haven't really seen too much, so the best thing I can compare him to is a Mike Evans, a young, fresh Mike Evans out of college, just ready to dominate the NFL. Well, not dominate, but you get what I mean. Already have the tight ends, huh? Well, there's one clear tight end that's the best than everyone else. Kenyon Sadiq. He's a little short for a tight end, like 6'3", some even measure him as 6'2". He only started for a year after Terrence Ferguson graduated. He needs to hang on to catches and can be converted to a wide receiver. I'm not joking. I actually have seen him, do that. But the reason why that he can do that is the fact that he could simply stretch a field using his speed and his game-breaking ability to change on any given play. Okay, so Justin Joly, this is one of the guys who I actually think has one of the best stories in the draft. He actually started at NC State for 3 years, but his best season was obviously this past year, which is why he's carrying that past graduation and into the draft. He has just an on-field awareness and the ability to do whatever with the ball in his hands that just makes him extremely unique. And to be brutally honest, he could lose about 10 pounds, but hey, I kind of like his style for now. And also, I love New York native. The last tight end I want to cover is a dude named Tanner Koisel. Tanner Koisel actually started for 3 years at Ball State. I don't know why he started at Ball State, probably because he was like a 2-star recruit. He's from Illinois, and he actually managed to do pretty well. So he actually carried that momentum to Houston, where he actually broke out with Connor Weigman, a former Texas A&M quarterback, throwing him the ball all day long and him literally just holding everything in. Despite having a losing record, he actually stood out on a team that hasn't really seen much since they joined the Big 12. And I hope he's actually, happy with himself because he's actually a model tight end, being 6'7" in the draft. He's also able to hang on to passes like a pro. He isn't flashy, he's a bit more of a blue-collar tight end, but one thing he loves to do, hit and get hit. Take that into mind. Yeah, I know. For all the positions that we're going to be doing, we're just going to compress all the offensive linemen together for time. Anyway, Carter Smith, the third Indiana player on the list. In fact, he blocked for 3 different Indiana quarterbacks. Michael Penix, Fernando Mendoza, and Curtis Rourke. I should have said the other two around, but that's beside the point. He's an excellent, top-notch pass blocker, All-American. He has more power than speed, so I actually recommend you move him to center. Can he block the run, though? That's one of my bigger questions. But besides for that, his fundamentals are just golden. And yeah, that's all I really have to say about the Ohio-born lineman. Yes, Caden Green, the Missouri-born product. In fact, he is extremely productive and versatile, having started at least one game at every position on the offensive line. Left tackle, right tackle, center, left guard, right guard. Yeah. He's agile yet strong. He's 325 pounds, although you could mold him for what you want him to be, especially because of his weight, his height, and the techniques that he's learned during his time at Missouri. He is also a former teammate of Armand Membeau and Keegan Trost, who I may or may not mention later in this video. Anyway, the next guy's a little bit of a nutshell, but he's got an interesting story behind him. Caleb Tiernan, one of those guys that got involved in the Northwestern hazing scandal without permission. Yeah, he's since become a positive locker room culture advocate and is actually interviewed on the Johnny Manziel show. Aside from that, he's had more or less of a big year in 2025, despite Northwestern going. He is definitely powerful, but can change direction, but he cannot block the run. Aside from that, there's a whole story about, Caleb Tiernan's involvement. You might actually be able to find that if you go out somewhere. He's actually, pretty positive about that. And let's hope he actually brings his positive attitude into locker rooms wherever he goes. Okay, I'm not even going to try and pronounce this guy's name because y'all are going to roast me, but I'm going to try it anyway. Olavivega Wayne? I think that's how you say it, but oh well. He's an offensive guard. He mauls the D lineman, he can block the run and pass. But the biggest question is, can he run? And can he block at the next level? This is not just a case about his size, this is also a case about his fundamentals and ability to see everywhere else except for his lane and zone. He has a bit of an issue doing that, even though he started like 2 years at Penn State. So, yeah. Yeah, if you think that last guy was pretty good, Logan Parr has been even more consistent. He's actually been a captain for SMU for the last 2 years, riding them to the highest level of college football. In fact, he's blocked for Preston Stone and Kevin Jennings, and has mentored several NFL-bound SMU linemen. He is also more agile, so I actually recommend you move him to tackle, but if you started all 4 years at left guard, left tackle, I don't think it really matters where he goes because he's going to be productive no matter where you put him. Okay, so this next guy is really one that's really going to, his career is going to bite him back. So he is a great pass blocker. I'll give him that. He can run over D linemen, but the biggest thing is he never really had success with the Kentucky Wildcats, and he got too much pressure early on to captain them. So can you really say his career was successful if he was pressured too early to start on the field? He did get injured, so take a warning. The next guy I want to cover is Logan Jones. He is from Council Bluffs, Iowa, and has been an Iowa Hawkeye all his career. He started for 3 years. His biggest question is screen enforcement. Can he go on the screen? But besides for that, I think he's agile and powerful, and I've actually seen this stat. He's blocked for a crew of different running backs, but he's led a top 5 rushing game between 2023 and 2025 alongside a very powerful Iowa line. But he was the front and center, quite literally, of it. The next guy's a little controversial. Parker Brailsford. I personally think he shouldn't have declared for the draft, but it's too late now. He's not as powerful as the other centers. He could gain about 10 pounds if he wants to. He's very agile and can get around pretty much anywhere. Second level, even third level occasionally. He had to block for 5 different running backs, none of them which saw back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. I don't even think he saw a 1,000-yard running back during his time at Bama. Not accepted quarterbacks, because Jalen Milroe, obviously had a 1,000-yard season. That's beside the point. Anyway, moving on. I personally like this next guy, Jake Slaughter. I mean, he's a pretty good leader. He actually lost some weight over the offseason. So, yeah, he's actually taken all the time he needed to go to the NFL draft, and I think he's going to be a second-round center. He's a great veteran leader. He can pick up blitzes. He has, like, an awareness that extends from here to here. He's a great pass-blocking center, and you could really place him wherever you want, depending on, where he wants to go. I mean, he's pretty much been more or less a good player. And even helped DJ Lagway get adjusted to Florida life. Oh, how lucky am I? I got his teammate right next to him, Jaden Roberts. You really need to improvise with this guy in order for him to fit in your scheme. But he's strong, but can he defend against the pass? He's faster than the other guards, so you could technically place him a tackle, but you might want to, actually get his body in check. To be brutally honest, he theoretically could be the guy that you place at right tackle. If you want to just maul on that side and run a sweep. Yeah, that's what he might be best useful for. The next guy is one I guarantee you've probably never even heard of. Kalen Rutledge. In fact, I didn't even know how to pronounce his name until yesterday. So, he's really fast to burst, but he's very slow to continue. He has very fine-tuned versatility. I've actually seen him play center and tackle. And to be brutally honest, he actually led Georgia Tech to some of their finest seasons in 2024 and 2025, including big upsets, overtime games that nearly came their way. Yeah, to be brutally honest, Georgia Tech's been one of the better squads that they've actually ever fielded, with him leading the way. The next guy I want to talk about is Armaj Reed Adams. In fact, he started at Texas A&M for 3 years. But the biggest issue is, can he dominate and control the ground game? Can he affect the ground game past one play? Despite the fact of that, he is a veteran who's actually gained a bunch of experience at the Division I level, and you pretty much have to allow the dude to get his feet wet before diving in all the way, if you know what I mean. You remember when I told you that Keegan Trost was somehow going to make it on the list? Then is now. So, yeah, Keegan Trost has only 1 year of experience from Missouri. I don't even know where he was before that. He's only done, that amount, but I feel like he could cut 10 pounds if he wants to extend his service. He has potential, though. A lot of it. However, it depends on which potential is harnessed, because you don't really have a whole lot of experience playing at competitive schools. Here's an interesting one. Did you know that there's only one guy from this list who is actually foreign-born? Francis Mauigoa. The next guy is that guy. Funny enough, he's 6'6", 335 pounds. He did consider rugby, but once his brother Francisco went to Miami, he followed him there. Fun fact, Francisco is actually a linebacker in the UFL nowadays, but Francis is way better. I'm saying. He's very versatile and is able to cut with some power behind him, But the biggest issue is, can he lead an offensive line and can he take charge in making, a defender feel an impact way past a play? And in the past, he has actually relied on others to gain success. For example, Samson Okunlola, he's also relied on Inez Cooper, I think. Yeah. A few others, but I don't really know their names, so why care? It's about him. So the last guy I want to mention before signing off is Spencer Fano. Spencer Fano is actually one of those tackles that is arguably a little more agile than physical, but the physicality is there. He could have gained a little muscle, but it must be, it must be down here, like down there. So he can defend against the great speed rushers of our age, such as Ruben Bain he's never played against Ruben Bain, but he could. However, if you really plan on drafting this guy, you must take him alongside his twin brother, Logan. He also declared for the draft at the same time. And yeah, that's really all I have for the offensive linemen for now. So yeah, that wraps up our offensive analysis for the 2026 pre-combine. And yeah, if any of you want to drop down a like, subscribe, yeah, I'd recommend you drop down a comment personally. But hey, if you want to know more, I think you can look down on the about this. What is it? About, I'm kind of getting used to the whole thing. So any support would really be great. And in the description for the video, you might see a few links and maybe a few players who didn't make it on this list because A, they are not going to the draft, B, they can't go to the draft, or C, they just didn't make the list because they're not really that good, that I personally like. Either way, BH, signing off.